In John 9:31, we learn that God heareth not sinners. What does this mean for believers who are also sinners? Obviously, if God did not hear sinners, no one would be able to pray to him. And we all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. We see examples in Scripture of men and women who have sinned, but their petitions were both heard and responded to by God. It was when we want to repent that we most need to come to God in prayer and have confidence that He hears us. We also see examples when God chooses not to hear prayers in Proverbs 28:9. He that turneth away his ear from hearing the law, even his prayer shall be an abomination. God tells Isaiah, prayers will not be heard because hands are full of blood. Israel reached to a point of being impudent and hard-hearted, and this mentioned in Ezekiel. And hypocritical worship and prayers are mentioned in Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Amos. Talk with God, your Creator, daily as a forgiven child of God, and pray without ceasing as you turn to God with life's difficulties and wrongdoings. We know that God does hear the cry of the sinner and lifts us up and lifts up those that fall. As long as we approach God with a sincere heart and reverence, we can know that He will hear our petitions.
There's nowhere I'd rather be when you're singing over me. I just wanna be here with you. I'm lost in your mystery. I'm found in your love for me. Oh, I just wanna be here with you.
Hey, man, let's give it up for the Lord right there, man. God, we love you. I just want to say to you guys, man, that there's really, we're just being with the Lord and being in His presence is what it's really all about. And this song talks about that there's nothing else that matters in the world. So whatever I'm putting in above Him or over Him, I need to just take it down. I just need to take it out of the way. So this challenges me to let nothing else matter except the Lord.
I'm caught up in your presence, and I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never wanna leave. No, I'm not here for blessings. And Jesus, you don't owe me anything, but more than anything that you can do, I just want you. I'm sorry when I've just gone through the motions. I'm sorry when I just sang another song. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. And I'm sorry when I've come with my agenda. I'm sorry when I forgot that you're enough. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. caught up in your presence, and I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never wanna leave. No, I'm not here for blessings. And Jesus, you don't owe me anything, but more than anything that you do, I just want you. And I just want you and nothing else, and nothing else, and nothing else will do. I just want you and nothing else, and nothing else, and nothing else will do. I just want you and nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want you and nothing else, and nothing else, Jesus, nothing else will do. I just want you and nothing else, and nothing else, and nothing else will do. I just want you and nothing else, and nothing else, nothing else will do. Coming back to where we started, when I first felt your love, oh God, 'cause nothing else matters, and nothing else matters but you, God, and nothing else. I'm caught up in your presence, and I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never wanna leave. No, I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't owe me anything, but more than anything that you can do, I just want you.
Good morning, Discovery Church. My name is Brandon, and I serve on the worship team. Whether you're joining us online or in person, we're so excited to have you as we continue our message series, You May Believe. This Saturday, the women will be having a women's breakfast right here at Discovery Church at 9 a.m. So bring your favorite breakfast dish and bring a friend. And if you have any questions, please contact Molly Lauterbach. Also, we will be hosting a Christian Seder on April 14th at 6 p.m. Now, seating is limited, so if you'd like to join, remember to sign up.
Well, good morning, everybody. How's first service doing? You guys are so wide awake. It's awesome. I'm glad to have you guys together. Glad you guys joined us online. Thank you so much for being a part of our worship this morning and allow us to come and be a part of your space today. Let's give it up in the house for people, everybody's online. Come on, y'all. Let's give it up for them. We love you guys. We're glad you're here. Come on, y'all do better than that. Come on, make more noise than that. Come on. There you go. Come on. Oh, I love it. I love it. Man, if you guys could just see, I know online you can't see, but right down here, we have a whole little worship section right here of all of our little kids, man. We don't have childcare first service, and they come in here and just rock my world, man, lifting their hands to Jesus. It's so much fun to be a part of worship and watch these kids love the Lord as they do. Today, we have a very special guest speaker to speak. I'll be back next week, so y'all can still come back anyway, even though I'm preaching next week, and I look forward to that. But I'm so glad to have Matt Allen speaking for us today. He's spoken here before, does a great job. Matt and Sarah have two little boys, Tristan and Peyton. And for Tristan and Peyton back here, we got family with us today. I just want you guys to really make him welcome as he comes and brings a word from John 13. Come on, Matt. Come on, brother.
Good morning. Again, thank y'all for joining us today. Thank you guys online for being here. I'm just going to be honest with you up front. This week has been awful, and it carried into this morning. I woke up feeling terrible. Computer stuff wasn't working, and it led right up till service started. And but luckily, I've got people like y'all in my corner and people that have prayed and have helped me through it. And so thank you all for that. And today's going to be good. It was, like Brandon said last week, if you got a bad week leading up to something big for Jesus, that's a pretty good sign something good's going to happen. And so thank you guys for joining us. If you don't know me, then I'm just going to tell you, if you came in here today or you joined online, listen for some beautiful, eloquent, well put together message. Without divine intervention, you're not going to get that from me. I'm just saying you're not. To reiterate that, when I graduated high school, I went right to college, and as far as your general education knows, most of you know you have to take a public speaking course, or you're supposed to. Anyway, well, I'll just tell you, I signed up for that class twice, and I dropped it both times before the first speech. I dropped it fast. I'm talking, I didn't want to hear other people speak, much less me get up there and speak, because I was so nervous for them. And here I am. This is the fourth or fifth time I've done this, and so I stand up here as proof that God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. And just what that means is if He calls you into something, He's going to give you exactly what you need to succeed. Because ultimately, it's to glorify Him, and that's not something He takes lightly. Someone's going to glorify Him, whether it's us or the rocks. That's scriptural. But this is our lesson 5 in a series that you may believe, and we're just taking this and going through John and the book of John, and just seeing kind of the life that Jesus lived and how He really just turned the world upside down and really changed the way everyone viewed everything. This week we're going to be in John 13 talking about Jesus washing the feet of His disciples and the significance of that. But the theme passage for this whole series comes from John 20. It's verse 30 and 31. It says, "The disciples saw Jesus do many other miraculous signs in addition to the ones recorded in this book. But these are written so that you may continue to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing in Him, you will have life by the power of His name." Having life by His name is the difference in having life and just living. So this story, this happens right before, hours before Jesus is going to be crucified. It's about time for what we know as the Last Supper, where He gathers with His disciples. And what I want to do with this is I just want us to see how Jesus served and how that will then translate to us and kind of what we're called to do in that aspect. So we're going to start in verse 1. This story goes verse 1 through 17, and we're just going to break it down and see what kind of servant Jesus was to all of us. So verse 1 starts, before the Passover celebration, Jesus knew that his hour had come to leave this world and return to his Father. He had loved his disciples during his ministry on earth, and now he loved them to the very end. I want us to see here, it didn't say he loved most of his disciples. It didn't say he loved them, some of them to the very end. It didn't say he loved the ones that weren't going to wrong him, as we know happens a few chapters through the next few chapters, and even at the end of chapter 13. But he said he loved his disciples during his ministry on earth and till the very end, regardless of what they did or how they treated him. Verse 2 goes on. It says, it was time for supper, and the devil had already prompted Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything, that he had come from God and would return to God. You see that? It starts off, he's talking about he realizes hours has come. He knows he's about to be crucified. He's about to be tortured, beaten, bruised, humiliated, spit on, just ridiculed, just the worst kind of thing you possibly imagine. And I don't know about y'all, but I would, if I knew that was coming, I'd probably just kind of hunker off to myself, kind of mope and cry. I'd be praying a lot because I'd be terrified. But, and you know, if there was ever a time where that's what it said Jesus did, we'd probably be like, you know, that makes sense. You know, I would do that. But that's not what he does. That's not his response to that. His response is, verse 4, so he got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, and poured water into a basin. Then he began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel he had around him. How many of us have our first response to stress or pain or hurt is to serve others? How many times do we get caught up in the mess of the world and we're like, you know what? I'm going to go find someone else who needs help and help them. So I can guarantee you that's not what I've been doing this week. That's not what I've been focused on. I've been focused on every bad thing that's happened and how in the world am I going to get through it? But that brings our first point. The way Jesus served was he served first. That was his response. That was his reaction to the things that were coming to him. It goes on in verse 9, or 6 through 9, and says, when Jesus came to Simon Peter, Peter said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? And Jesus replied, you don't understand now what I'm doing, but someday you will. See, the idea of the whole thing about the washing of the feet was it was a hospitality thing back in Jesus' time. And it was normally done by either servants or the wife of the host. And so for especially the host to do it was unheard of, but he wasn't even the host. They were in someone else's home when this happened. And so this whole the whole idea of him doing this was absurd, really, that he would take himself to put himself at that level. And so that's why Peter's reaction was, are you really going to wash my feet? Of course, we always know Jesus has something else in store. And Jesus said, you don't understand now what I'm doing, but someday you will. Peter said, no, you're never going to wash my feet. But Jesus replied, unless I wash you, you can't belong to me. Now, Peter doesn't fully understand it, but he knows he wants to belong to Jesus. He loves Jesus. He's all about some Jesus. So he goes from, you'll never wash my feet, to the next verse. Simon Peter exclaimed, then wash my hands and head as well, Lord. Wash all of me, not just my feet. He completely flipped the script. Man, to have that kind of faith, to not understand but say, I want it all. Give it to me. But Jesus said, you don't understand now what I'm doing. Someday you will. And unless I wash you, you won't belong to me. So he wasn't concerned so much with their feet. And I got to be honest with you. I don't know how well I'd have done in that society. because everyone walked everywhere in sandals or barefoot through all. They didn't have nice paved roads or sidewalks to walk down. It was dirt, mud, whatever, horrible terrain. So you could imagine what kind of feet he was washing. Phew, man. But see, in this case, he's not worried about getting the dirt off your feet, but he's saying, let me wash the sin out of your life, and then you can belong to me. And so the second way that Jesus served is that he served with a heavenly perspective. His goal was getting us to heaven. His goal was him remaining in us, and us remaining in him, so that one day we'll be able to live forever with him. Served with a heavenly perspective. Verse 10 continues on. Jesus replied, a person who is bathed all over does not need to wash except for the feet to be entirely clean. And you disciples are clean, but not all of you. For Jesus knew who would betray him. That's what he meant when he said, not all of you are clean. So he knew before he ever served his disciples, he knew well in advance of this that Judas was going to betray him and that Peter was going to deny him. But he still chose to serve them. He chose to serve them, and later you see that they ate at the Last Supper when he was talking about taking the bread and drinking the wine and remembering the sacrifice that he made. That sacrifice was for all, regardless of the sin that we commit. You see, despite what they were going to do, Jesus served them. Despite what he was going through that we saw in the first few verses, Jesus served them. John 3:17, it's not on the screen, but it says, God sent his son not to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. What kind of message would that have sent if Jesus chose not to serve Peter and Judas the same as the other disciples, just because of the sin they may commit later, or that he knew they would? It wasn't a may, it was. But just because of the sin they were going to commit later. We know we're going to sin at some point. We're not immune to that. We've sinned in the past. But we still have hope, the same way that Judas and Peter had hope. By serving someone first, despite what they've done to you, how they made you feel, how they might have wronged someone else that has bothered you, it allows for that sin that's going to happen in the future to become a conviction and not a condemnation. See, if Jesus had refused to wash them because of the sin he was going to do, he even said back, he said, unless I wash you, you won't belong to me. So what would that have said if he just chose not to wash their feet? But he did. See, Jesus wasn't brought into the world to condemn it, neither are we. It wasn't his decision who to serve and who not to serve, just like it's not ours either. We're called to serve. We're called to answer the call. The result is up to God. God will handle the outcome. I heard Craig Rochelle tell a story. It was kind of a two-part story about this. He said him and his wife were on a mission trip, like halfway across the world or something, and they had a day off, and so they went for a long walk. They were 30 minutes or so from where they were staying, and he said God just told him, he said, hey, you need to call this guy. I don't know the guy's name. He didn't say the guy's name. But he said, you need to call this guy. And so he told his wife, and he's like, yeah, call him. Well, he reached in his pockets, and suddenly, I've left my phone back in the room. So his wife said, well, go get it and call him. Jesus tells you, call him. So he walks back to the room, calls him, and he didn't realize when he called him about the time change. He called this guy in the middle of the night. And this guy answers the phone and says, why are you calling me right now? He said he knew this guy had been struggling with some things and going through some stuff. And he said, I just had it on my heart to call you. He said, why are you calling me right now in this moment? And he said, whatever his name was, he said, are you thinking about hurting yourself? He said, yeah, I was about to in just the next few minutes. And the story he continues the story with saying that, he realized that this was from God, and he was convicted of it, and everything got better with this guy. He all these issues he was dealing with handled themselves and whatnot. But then he goes on to say that he was at home one day and God prompted him to go up to his son and just pray over his son. And he'll tell you he's not a very like public prayer guy. He's not what you would call like a big like prayer warrior, like in public in front of other people. But he said he felt the urge. He kind of fought it for a second, but he's like, all right, I'm gonna go do this. Well, he rounded the corner to the living room where his son was at, and sure enough, every one of his son's friends are sitting in that room. And he said, you know what? I'm going to pray with them, God, but I'm going to wait till they leave. I'm going to wait till they go. And God said, no, you're not. You can go do that now. So he goes in. He tells his son what he was going to do, and he puts his hand on his shoulder, prays for him. He said they finished praying. We looked each other in the eyes, turned and walked away, and never spoke of it again because it was awkward for everybody. The point of that is the outcome's not up to us. Who we serve and how we serve is not up to us. We're supposed to serve everybody. We're supposed to answer the call. We're not called to feed the multitudes. We're called to provide the fish and the bread. We're not called to grow this huge harvest and gather it up. We're called to plant the seed. God will make it grow inside of us. And so the third point here is that Jesus served unconditionally. Despite what he was going through, despite what others were going to do to him, he served them. Starting verse 12, so after washing their feet, he put on his robe again and sat down and asked, do you understand what I was doing? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, because that's what I am. And since I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. I've given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you. I like that phrase, do as I have done to you. We have this golden rule. Everyone knows the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Here's a trick with that. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I'm not expecting every one of you to serve me all the time. So in turn, with that mentality, I'm probably not going to serve you all the time if I look at it that way. But instead of saying do unto others as you would have them do unto you, how about we say do unto others as Jesus has done to us? It goes on and says, I tell you the truth, slaves are no greater than their master, nor is the messenger more important than the one who sends the message. Now that you know these things, God will bless you for doing them. This specific story was meant to teach. He tells us to give an example of how we're supposed to serve. And the result of this is how we serve God. Really, we serve others. We serve God by serving others. And it sounds so radical, so crazy, especially in that time because of what he was doing and the way he was going about it. And he never just did anything conventionally, hardly ever. It seemed like it was always some crazy way that really it made you talk about it. It made you wonder. And so that's all this. This was a lesson for us to see of how we're supposed to serve each other. We're supposed to serve radically and crazy and against everything that this society tells us. We live in a cancel culture right now that says when someone wrongs you, get rid of them. Get it out of your life. You don't need it. Jesus is saying it doesn't matter what they do to you. It doesn't matter what they do to somebody else. You're not called to make that decision. You're called to serve them. You're like, well, how do I do that? What does that look like? I love Matthew 25, verses 31 through 40. It says, but when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit upon his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered in his presence, and he will separate the people as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will place the sheep at his right hand and the goats at his left. The king would say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the creation of the world. From the creation of the world, it was prepared for us. From the beginning, God set out to serve us. I know we're saying God's serving us. We're supposed to serve God. God doesn't serve us. That's not in the Bible. It's all over the Bible. There's examples of it all over the place. It starts at the beginning when he gave Eve to Adam for Adam's benefit. When he gave Jesus to us for our benefit. It was to serve us, it was providing a service for us that we couldn't provide for ourselves. Like, well, how do you give like that? How do you serve like that? It's in John 3:16 as the example. It said, "For God so loved the world, he gave." He gave. It didn't benefit him any to send his son to die for us, except that he desires us to be with him. It was for our benefit, for us to be able for Jesus to bridge that gap so that we could get to God, be with him. Jesus' ministry was meant to serve us and show us that through him is how we inherit the kingdom that was prepared for us from the time of creation. It goes on into 35, and it says, "For I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you invited me into your home. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you cared for me, and I was in prison and you visited me." Then these righteous ones will reply, "Lord, when did we ever see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink, or a stranger and show you hospitality, or naked and give you clothing? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And the king will say, "I tell you the truth. When you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me." When we serve others, we serve God. Now this, he gives examples that they can relate to. He's talking about helping the sick, helping the poor. And those are good. Those are things we're called to do. We call the less fortunate, we say sometimes. But that's not where it ends. It's not just saying serve those. When you serve those types of people, that's when you serve God. What it's saying is when you serve someone when they're in their least form. It's forgiving when they're being the least forgivable. It's serving when they're being the least servable. It's loving when they have treated you like crap time after time after time again. And the only way to do that is to humble ourselves down to the level of the lowly servant, just like Jesus did. Because you can't do it if you're doing it with pride. Pride takes your focus off of Jesus and puts it on you. Pride is the difference in showing up for God and showing out for others. If it's for our own gain or attention, it's not for God. God gives us the same example in John 3:16. He gave. How did he give? Why did he give? For God so loved. He loved us, so he gave. So if you want to serve like Jesus, you have to love like Jesus. If you want to serve first, if you want to learn to serve first, you've got to love first. If you want to serve with a heavenly perspective, with the goal of getting people to heaven and being with Christ, you've got to love with that goal in mind. If you want to serve unconditionally, you've got to love unconditionally. If you want to serve intentionally, which was the last point of how he served that I just realized I completely skipped over. I saw it on the screen, realized I didn't do it. That was the last point, is Jesus served intentionally. Whether it was a lesson like this was, or showing us something, or teaching us something, he did it with a purpose. And that's how we're supposed to serve. And that purpose, like I said, is supposed to be for him and him alone, not for anything for our benefit. So like I said, if you want to love like Jesus, you got to serve. Or if you want to serve like Jesus, you have to love like Jesus. Let's pray. Dear Lord, I just want to thank you for this day. Thank you for what you did, for the example you were to us. Just thank you for loving us and serving us unconditionally, despite how many times we fall short, or how many times we mess it up. Just thank you. Thank you that despite the kind of week that's been going on, that glory will still be brought to you in one way or another. Thank you for everything that you've done for us. Thank you for all your blessings. Just I pray that someone here today maybe learned something about you they didn't know, or their hearts were changed in a way that bring them closer to you. I just thank you for everything. Thank you that despite what's going on in the world, you are the one constant that remains true and good, and that we can lean into no matter what. Just be with everyone here as we end this today, and just be with them through the rest of today and the week. And just help them to seek you in all aspects of their life, because when they seek you, the trials and the hurt and the pain and the struggles and the stress, it doesn't matter, because we got you and you're more powerful than anything this world can throw at us. So thank you for sending your son Jesus to die on the cross. Thank you for serving us unconditionally. And thank you for serving us first. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you for that, Matt. Matt and Sarah, they're a real blessing in my life, and way more than most of y'all know in here. But they really are. Matt means a lot to me, and thank you for that reminder of how we are supposed to live our lives, and that's to serve others. And it reminded me, I don't know how many of y'all even know what Winterfest is, but we went to Winterfest years ago, and I remember they came out with a L1 and L2. That was the lesson that year, and it was love God first, love others. And we brought that home, and Dad at our church, he added a third one to that. It was love God, love others, and serve. And that's what we're called to do. Why does Discovery Church exist? Thank you. There you go. It's to fill the empty seat. And one way we can do that is just by loving on others and serving others. And so thank you for that, man. Right now we're going to move into the next part of our worship that we call tithes and offerings. And this is just a way we can give back just a portion of how we've been blessed. And so on your screens and online and here in house, you can see the ways you can give. And giving's tough. It is. Tithing is hard sometimes. But we're called to do it. And we're called to put that trust and that faith in Jesus, and that when you put that faith, he promises us that he will provide. And he promises us that he'll give us $1 million if you just tithe the 10%. That's a lie. It's not what he promises us. But he does promise us that he'll take care of us and that he'll provide everything that we need. And this is something that tithing's hard sometimes to talk about too, because we hate asking for money, right? But one way that this church serves is by giving back to our community, and one way we do that is with the tithing, and tithing, it helps the church be able to do that, but it's not benefiting the church. Tithing benefits you, and I'm proof of that, because I didn't like to give, and giving is still tough, but that's just what we're called. And if you're not a partner with us here, we're not asking for your money. That's not why we're here. But if you are a partner, that's helps us do what we do. And so also, if anything said this morning hits you in any kind of way and you need to reach out and talk to somebody, we ask that you do go to our website at discoveryal.church. And I am going to put this plug in there a little bit. We have revamped our website. So I'm going to ask all of our partners who don't even go to the website anymore, go to it today. Check it out. If you see something messed up, don't tell me, because I don't want to know. No, I'm just kidding. If you do see something messed up, yeah, holler at me. There's still some stuff we're going to do, but also it's a newly revamped website, and we're excited about. And but go to it. Click on the Connect tab. It's at the top right-hand corner. You can't miss it. It says Connect. And it'll take you to a website and or a place where you can put in a message, and everything will go to Pastor Dad, Pastor Keith. It goes straight to him, and it's just so we can connect with you and we can love on you. So Father, thank you again so much for this morning. Thank you for the word that Matt brought and just what he means to Discovery, what he means to me personally, and just what he means to so many, Father. But thank you for using him, speaking through him, and reminding that you don't call the qualified, but you qualified the called, Father. And so thank you for sending your Son to die for us, Father, and to serve us so that we can go into the world and serve others and bring them closer to you. And it's through your Son's name we pray.